Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel at Alexandru. On this channel you will find information about cryptocurrencies, businesses, methods to earn money working from home. Also on this channel you will find news and very useful information about the life that surrounds us every day. In today's clip we'll talk about 8 steps by which you can get rid of gambling addiction. Gambling addiction is the uncontrollable urge to engage in this behavior despite the negative effects felt. Left untreated, it can significantly affect a person's financial situation, relationships with others, and other aspects of their life. How gambling addiction is formed. In general, addiction refers to an uncontrollable urge to consume a certain substance or engage in a certain behavior and the inability to stop. Addiction develops gradually and involves changes in chemical neurotransmitters. Over time, addictive behavior increases the level of dopamine in the brain, which makes the experience more pleasurable. But as the person gets used to this feeling, they will continue to repeat the behavior, trying to achieve the same effect. The same mechanism occurs in the case of the formation of gambling addiction. For a person suffering from this condition, the feeling of betting or gambling is equivalent to the desire to drink alcohol for a person suffering from alcohol addiction. If in the case of alcoholism we can talk about the impulse to consume an increasing amount of alcohol, in the case of gambling, the person in question is willing to risk even more to achieve that well-being, considering that if he continues to play, will earn the lost money. In this way, a vicious circle develops and a strong desire to engage in this behavior develops, while the ability to resist the impulse decreases. As the desire increases in intensity and frequency, the ability to self-control is weakened. This aspect has harmful effects on life, leading to risky and dangerous behavior, financial problems caused by the accumulation of debt and even resorting to theft to support the addictive behavior. Although there are a number of legislative measures aimed at discouraging the consumption of gambling, they continue to be popular especially among young people. The internet has also made gambling much more accessible. Online casinos and bookies are open 24/7 to anyone with a smartphone or access to a computer. Therefore, it is increasingly difficult for a gambling addict to stay away from them to avoid relapse, with the tempting environment at every turn. Symptoms of gambling addiction. People who suffer from this condition try to hide their condition, but this addiction is difficult to hide, considering that it requires access to bookies and casinos. It manifests through obsession with any type of gambling, turning to gambling to feel better in general, inability to control impulses to play, avoiding work or other commitments to the detriment of gambling, neglecting other important expenses by using money for gambling, selling household goods to raise money and accumulating debt, stealing money from other people, lying about gambling habit, the appearance of a feeling of guilt after a gaming session, taking more and more risks while gambling. Unlike most regular gamblers who stop when they lose, or set their own limit on the amount of money they can lose, people with addictions feel an uncontrollable urge to gamble to get their money back, behavior that becomes increasingly destructive as time goes on. Some people with machine or gambling addiction don't do it consistently, but once they start playing, they can't stop. Causes and risk factors of gambling addiction. As with other addictions, compulsive gambling is the result of a combination of biological, genetic, and environmental factors. They can be the existence of mental disorders. People suffering from this addiction may have problems with the abuse of prohibited substances, personality disorders, depression or anxiety. Gambling may also be associated with bipolar disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, or attention deficit disorder, ADHD. Age. Gambling addiction is more common in younger and middle-aged people. A person who had this type of behavior in childhood or adolescence is prone to develop this addiction when he becomes an adult. Sex. Men are more likely to develop this addiction than women. Those who start playing usually show this behavior later, but can become addicted more quickly. Influence of family or friends. If other family members or members of the entourage also have a gambling problem. Side effects of some drugs, for example, drugs used to treat Parkinson's disease and to treat restless leg syndrome, called dopamine agonist drugs, can have side effects that can lead to compulsive gambling behaviors. Certain personality characteristics: highly competitive, impulsive, restless, bored or overworked people are more likely to develop this addiction. Exposure to stress, loneliness, boredom, studies show that a significant risk factor can be the speed of certain games. The types of games where there is a short time between placing a bet and seeing the results are at greater risk for players to develop an addiction. Complications of gambling addiction. Untreated, this addiction can lead to destroying relationships with family and friends, poor performance at work and including loss of work, loss of home, car or other personal property, accumulation of debt, legal issues, a poor state of health, suicidal thoughts and attempts. That is why, at the first signs that could indicate the presence of this addiction, it is important that the person in question asks for specialized help before the addiction gets worse. Although this addiction cannot be prevented by specific means, educational programs aimed at young people and people in other risk categories could be useful. Diagnosing gambling addiction. If you think you or someone close to you may have a gambling problem, it is important to seek medical help for an evaluation. For a correct diagnosis, the doctor will go through the following steps, will ask questions about gambling habits, may include asking permission to speak to family members or friends. He will do a physical examination to see if this compulsive behavior could be associated with other health problems. Will do a psychiatric evaluation, which will include questions about gambling symptoms, thoughts, feelings, and behavior patterns. Depending on the answers, the doctor will decide if there are other mental disorders. If you made it to the end of the Alexandru clip, thank you, and I hope I helped you and you learned something from this clip. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe.